name's Leah Wetzstein. I work for the Community College Research Initiatives, and this is my colleague, Ling. And our director, if you guys were at the award ceremony, is Dr. Debra Bragg, and she's unable to make it thanks to Snowmageddon in Seattle. She did not get out. So we're here today to talk to you about transfer partnerships. And as an educator, I'm a researcher, and we're all researchers and educators. And as an educator, you kind of really need to know who your audience is you're speaking to. And I was going to have you all introduce yourselves in your institutions, but we did the cutoff at 50. We thought we'd run out of time if we did 50 people doing why you're here or why you're interested in this session. But I still want to know the audience. I can't do all 50 of you because we only have an hour to talk about our work. So can I get like a dozen volunteers, and you have to speak into this mic, so I'm going to walk around, and tell me why you're interested in this session. Name an institution.
My name is James David Williams, and I'm from Coastal Alabama Community College. And the reason I'm interested is I want to create a culture of transfer at our school.
Hi, I'm Kara Ray, and I'm Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs at Kennesaw State, just up the road. And I am here because we think we're doing lots of good things, probably in little pockets all over the place. And so I would like to learn more and hopefully be able to draw folks together to create good programs.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me? My name's Lori. I'm from Polytechnic University. We are located in Orlando, Florida. Our main campus is in Puerto Rico. I have two roles. I'm under a STEM grant. So I'm a research analyst, but I'm also an articulation specialist where I do contracts with community college 2 years and for them to transfer to our schools if that's in the best interest of the student. But I'm okay with telling them they need to go to another 4-year school if it's a better fit based on their needs. So I'm hoping to learn something today.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Mastrogiovanni and I work at the University of Tennessee. My professional role is actually working with first year and transfer student services, but the reason I'm interested in this is because I'm actually a doctoral candidate. I'm doing work on collaboration and transfer student services, so it's perfect.
All right, anybody else?
Hi, my name's Ruben Council. I'm from Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania, one of those small private liberal arts colleges, who has traditionally relied on a first-year recruitment strategy only. And so I'm here because we're sort of in the fledgling stages of actually building these partnerships and all of the fun challenges that we all know go along with that.
All right. Anybody else?
Hi, my name.
Yeah, it's for the camera.
Oh, okay. My name is Juantisha Christian. I'm an academic advisor for Borough of Manhattan Community College in New York City. It's actually one of the largest community colleges in part of the country and the largest in New York City. And so like our department really encourages us to step outside of the role just an academic advisor and actually create programs and lead programs and workshops and things like that. So I'm just looking for, I guess, more opportunities to understand like effective transfer partnerships and being able to create those things. So
great. All right, one more and then I'm gonna, excuse me.
Hi, Brian Studebaker from Marian University in Indianapolis. I'm the Director of Transfer Admission and been in this role for about 1.5 years now. 26 years in admissions, but first time to really focus on transfer students. So looking at what types of partnerships we can put together, having the Ivy Tech system, and being very fortunate to work with Dr. Russell Baker, who just happens to be sitting next to me now, so we'll say very good things. But looking for ways to keep Russ and I busy and what types of partnerships and other ways and other avenues with other 2-year colleges as well for our students.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. And now, not only do I know a little bit more about you, you guys know a little bit more about each other. And the importance of that is we're going to talk about our work, but half of this, or some of our time, is you guys talking to each other and learning, because you're coming with your own wealth of knowledge, and we're just sharing some of what we learned with some of our research. So our learning objectives is to share with you about our research on our multi-state study on transfer partnerships. It's a mixed method, quantitative and qualitative, and you're going to hear a lot of the qualitative research results today, and share how culture, policies, and practices impact transfer partnerships. Ling is going to be talking about that. But when we think about transfer partnerships, a lot of times people are thinking about mechanics and kind of practices or articulation agreements and things like that. But one of our research findings is how culture is way impactful on everything, policies and practices, if you're trying to build partnerships. And then the last part is utilizing this information for you guys to have conversations to see how this could be helpful for you. Sounds like we have 2-year and 4-year institutions, people who have been doing partnerships, people who are starting to think about how to do partnerships. So hopefully we can help each other out. All right, so why are we talking about transfer partnerships? I think you guys brought it up in talking about why you're here. Transfer partnerships, we believe, and the research is showing, is important for transfer students. Students have the process of transfer, instead of thinking about it as a singular process, right? The students have to be supported where they are. They have to make the movement to the next institution and be supported there for transfer and completion to happen. So we believe, and did this study with the belief that transfer partnerships is going to be important to help transfer students be successful. And as we know, the reason a lot of you are here and the reason this conference exists is because transfer students, the leap sometimes doesn't happen. They don't get to transfer, and when transfer happens, there's not an equitable outcomes that is happening once transfer happens. And so we got to figure out how to do that and how to make transfer easier and better for all students. So our research, I'm going to talk about kind of how we set it up, and like I said, in some of our results, and Ling's going to hit some of the other interesting qualitative results. So we did a mixed method research study in which we used quantitative data to find institutional pairs that did better than their peers in their state for students' transfer and completion or retention, okay? So we had quantitative data from previous work that Debra had done on reverse transfer. And from that, we looked for pairs of institutions that did better than their peers for student transfer and retention or completion. And we were also focusing on those pairs that did better for students of color. With those findings, we decided, okay, these guys are doing better, but how or why? And is a partnership part of what is involved? Part of our qualitative work is understanding what is a partnership. What does a transfer partnership look like? If you look in the literature, a lot of people define a partnership just as if my students go to your college or your students go to my college, it's a partnership. What our work found is it takes a little more than that to be a real partnership. So the qualitative research, I'll give you a little more discussion of the methodology, but those required us going to the institutions and talking to the people to get their understanding of what is a transfer partnership. So the research questions that we were looking at, and we're going to talk to you about our results on, were these three, which is how do the transfer partnerships impact underserved students, and what do they look like? We went to 3 states because each state has its own context, right? It's very different, every state, on how the policies and practices and the institutions may be asked to work together or not at the 2-year or the 4-year level. So we looked at these different contexts to see how those contexts could possibly impact partnerships. And then what are the catalysts and barriers? What gets institutions to work together, and what prevents them from working together? I bet you a few things come to your mind, especially if you've been trying to do this work, but we're gonna share our results with you. So a little more information about our qualitative analysis and data work. Ling and I were kind of the leads on the qualitative side. So what that meant is visiting 7 institutional pairs in 3 states and talking to 231 folks about what does it mean for partnerships and how is that impactful on students. When the 231 is administrators, it is faculty, and it is students. We're talking to all of them because we need everybody's perspective. If you just ask a president, that's a singular perspective. And so what we were trying to get is an understanding from people throughout the institution on what is this partnership, and from the students. Do they see, or do they see these relationships as partnership? How impactful is it to them, and what does it mean to them? By the way, if you guys have any questions, please stop us and ask. This is this is one of the I should have said that earlier on, but it is a research presentation. But again, just as educators, I want to hear what you're thinking, and if I'm not making any sense, or you have more questions about what I'm talking about, please ask, okay? Yes, sir. Are we saying the states? Minnesota, Ohio, and Colorado. Yes, ma'am. We controlled for the variables like first-generation Pell Grant recipients, but when we were saying underrepresented students of color, we were looking at African American, Native American, and Latino, Latinx. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start with the results of what did the students say about how impactful was a partnership, because I suspect a lot of you are driven by student outcomes. What we heard from the students is they saw the partnerships as being very impactful, because for some of these students, they wouldn't be able to get a bachelor's degree without them. Ling's going to describe these partnerships in more detail, but let me give away some of the some of the results. But for the first one, the bachelor degree options, some of these partnerships are such that they're actually sharing space, right? Four-year universities are on 2-year campuses, so students can complete their bachelor's degree there, right? There's university buildings on the 2-year campuses. They could be sharing resources, such as they both hire a co-advisor that works for both institutions. There's a level of commitment that provides some students that are place-bound an option for a bachelor's degree that would not otherwise exist. And those bachelor degree options wouldn't exist because of 4 years for a lot of these students. 4 years at a 4-year is too expensive. So without a route for a 2+2 or a 2-year to get them to the 4-year, this would not be, the bachelor's degree would not be an option. Having these close connections helps the students, especially when advisors talk to advisors and our faculty are talking to faculty at these institutions. The students were seeing, trying to find a place where I'm not in your way. Students were see less loss of credits, understanding more of what they need to take to get from here to there without having to redo or undo new credits. This is how a lot of transfer work is talked about, is this efficiency of credit transfer. But for a lot of these students, it's feeling the connection in the new place and building that connection from the 2-year to the new place. And a lot of these things, a lot of the ways this happened is people at the institutions had their relationships, again, faculty, advisors, and things like that, where they're like, oh, so you're on your way to college U. Here's who you need to talk to. Not only here's who you need to talk to, why don't we go talk to them? Or if they're on the same campus, or here's their email. I'll CC you on it. This is the person you talk to. This is the faculty member in your program. these are things. And for a lot of these students, that felt like the sense of belonging transferred from their 2-year to their 4-year institution. Okay? All right. Do you guys have any questions for me or before I hand it over to Ling? Okay. Ling's going to hit the rest of some of our other findings. Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's the clicker to the right there.
Okay. So for the second research question, we asked about what high-performing partnerships look like, and in what ways do they vary. Some of the themes that came up when we went through all our data are that partnerships are dynamic. So just because a partnership is doing well this year does not mean that it will be doing well 10 years from now. Or maybe there wasn't a partnership 5 years ago, but something changed, and so now it's doing really well. And they kind of go through this cycle of up and down. Another thing we found is that there are lots of different levels of collaboration and working together. Again, kind of to what Leah spoke to, just because you share students back and forth doesn't mean you're in a partnership, but then you know, there are multiple levels of partnership, which we'll kind of talk about on the next slide. And again, to the third point, not all institutional pairs are partnerships. So this was a model that we adapted from a theory about multi-institutional partnerships in general. And I believe originally it came from the health services. But we found that a lot of the categories applied to what we found. And so at the first level of working together, we found that, you know, institutions might cooperate with each other. They share information, they share students. And so that's this first blue square over here. The next level up we called coordination. And so this is kind of the next level of working together where the two institutions, the 2-year and the 4-year, are coordinating or aligning some of their tasks. And they have compatible transfer goals, so maybe they share the goal of transferring X% of students each year, or it might be occurring at the departmental level. Some of the tasks often are recruitment and admissions or orientation. They might be inviting people to come to one campus to do a presentation once a year or occasionally. The next level up we called actually collaboration. So they're actually intentionally meeting with each other to develop strategies. This may occur, you know, between advising offices, for example, or again between certain academic departments, between admissions and recruitment. And they really seem to share a purpose around their transfer goals. Like they actually feel like we have the same goal. And that's different from compatible because compatible just means they work well together, right? But they're not necessarily shared. And then the highest level of collaboration that we saw was termed an alliance. And these are actual integrated programs and structures such as these. There were a couple of 2+2 programs that they actually had named and co-branded, that's right. So there would be a separate name or brand for this particular program, and so students would know immediately at the community college that once they joined this co-branded program, they would automatically be going to the 4-year when they had finished. And these were some of the examples of integrated programs that we saw. And a lot of the administrators that we talked to and use the term seamless transfer experience to describe the purpose and mission of behind developing these programs. And the arrow at the top just indicates that this first kind of square of cooperation isn't really, at least the way we defined it, didn't really come across as a transfer partnership, but the last 3 were. Are there any questions about that? And so here are some examples of different collaboration levels. The coordinating, these are some of the things I explained already. There are a few faculty and staff that talk to each other occasionally. They may or may not work on articulation agreements together. Collaborating at the next level, where there's more staff and faculty at the institution who work with each other. They're talking more in depth about curriculum alignment, and they communicate more regularly. And then the alliance partners have the common goals, the co-branded programs. And a lot of them use the term win-win to talk about their relationship with each other and why they are in partnership to begin with. The third research question, what are some of the catalysts and barriers to forming and sustaining transfer partnerships? When we looked in the literature before we started the study, we found that a lot of the influences on or a lot of the research on previous transfer partnerships or transfer, maybe more collaborations, fell into three buckets, and we kind of labeled them culture, policy, and practice. But what we found in our study is that it was really the intersections of these three circles that is where a lot of the catalysts and barriers sat. So it wasn't just culture, but it was a way that culture impacted practice. Or it wasn't just policy that impacted the partnership, but it was the way that the policy impacted the culture at the institutions. So we came up with this kind of diagram to talk about the push-pull factors behind transfer partnerships. On the one side, you can see the barriers, and then on the other side, you can see the opposite, which is kind of the catalysts. And so we found that the most factors came up under culture and practice. A few of them fell under policy and practice, and then policy and culture, the one at the bottom, was kind of one main finding. So some of the things that arise are leadership and how leaders either prioritize or don't prioritize partnering, working in isolation versus developing multiple relationships across campuses, trust versus distrust, decision-making that prioritizes your institution versus decision-making that prioritizes the student. I think I heard someone in the audience say that you will tell a student to go to another school if it is the best decision for them. And what we found is that the people who were really invested in these partnerships would do that. They would say, you know, we're going to tell the student that they should go back to this institution and take their credits there because it's better for them, even though it might be bad for us. Colorblind perspective versus a focus on racial equity. Loyalty to your institution versus this culture of collaboration, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Communication. Let me see. I'll skip over the policy and practice, but the bottom one, policy and culture, we thought was kind of interesting because we found that state level policies would often try to promote collaboration, but then in reality or in implementation, they actually promoted competition, and that was pretty interesting to us. And we're going to give one example. We're going to pull out the loyalty to the institution versus the culture of collaboration as one example of what this looked like in our data. So we had a couple of quotes. The top one, where a person was telling us that they work to serve a common group of students. We share the value of obtaining and earning the higher degree, and that's a shared value. And they know that that is really best for the professions that they're entering, for the students themselves. And then the second quote is, there's great benefit to the institutions to working together, and it would be unwise for us to try to compete with our partner. They do some things that we can't offer, and likewise, students can progress from their excellent programs into our programs. So it's mutually beneficial, and here's the win-win. It's positive for everyone. It's a win-win for everyone. And so we found a lot of stories like that we ended up putting into this kind of idea or theme of a culture of collaboration. So we talked to multiple people at a particular campus that had this attitude. And we felt like, you know, at a certain point, if everyone we talked to shared that viewpoint, that it felt like a campus or an institution that really valued the idea of collaboration and working with the other institution, as opposed to, you know, well, it's not good for our school, so I don't think we should do it. It's going to hurt us in some way, or, you know, it's us first. You know, it's like a me first versus let's work together to fix it kind of idea. And we wrote up a short data note about this idea of the culture of collaboration. The citation is down here at the bottom. I'm pretty sure we're sharing these slides, so you can find it later. Okay, Leah's gonna overview.
All right. So does that bring up any questions? What what Ling talked about? Yes, sir. They were all publics, yeah, and most of those were regional four-year institutions with the two-year institution pairs. So it's a two-year, four-year, no privates, and yeah, mostly regional. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so what we were recognizing is every pair we looked at is different, but we're noticing the levels of collaboration, right? And the idea of just, and as somebody brought up when they were discussing, there might be pockets of people at our institution talking to pockets of people at their institution, and that would be kind of lower on the level versus the higher end is, as Ling was describing, the culture of collaboration where everybody says, no, we work together because it's a win-win. And often it was a triple win. It's a win for us, it's a win for them, and it's a win for the students, right? And so where each pair sits exactly in there, that's another research. What we're trying to provide is a way to understand and see that different levels of collaboration. They're all going to do it differently because of their different contexts. One relationship was, over almost 100 years old, and then some are brand new and just starting. And so you've got the trying to figure out, how do you do this? And then you've got the problems of having the old relationships where we're still angry for that, or, we didn't do that, and things. One of the analogies in those highly collaborative on that end is people describing their relationship as a marriage between institutions. Now, can I say like the quantitatively, like the students are doing much, much better on that end versus this end? What our argument is, doing partnerships is helpful, is what we can say. It's been helpful, and the level of collaboration, I would suspect, is more helpful, but it's our qualitative data is not like saying I can give you a statistically significant difference. Yes. Actually, what we're trying to do is say in the literature, a lot of people talked about transfer partners to say, again, if my student goes to your school, then it's a partnership. We're arguing it's not a partnership unless there's some intentionality. And if you just have an articulation agreement because somebody mandated that, that doesn't necessarily. And so we're trying to argue, let's use the term partnership for partnerships. And so that's what we're saying. So the institutions we're looking at, yep, we'd say that like those are partnerships, but we discussed other relationships they had that didn't work as well, or maybe were more forced and not seeing that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes. That's what we're arguing is there's an intentionality and energy put into the system instead of just my students happen to go to your school because we're proximate to each other. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we learned and then what you know and then what you're going to learn is, so this is kind of a summary of what we learned. Yeah, transfer partnerships are dynamic. Again, back to the marriage analogy. That was one of the older partnerships that said, you know, they were in a place where they had kind of, let's just say they were in a not great space, but they're getting back together. And they talked about, you know, like a marriage, you got to keep putting energy into it, even if you've got, you know, the years behind you. And there was a president that came in and that stopped putting the energy into it, and things were fizzling, but a new president was in, and there was, like, again, recognizing how important this is. So they're dynamic. So we also recognize we just took a snapshot in time of these partnerships, right? So to assume a partnership, the moral of that story, once you've created it, it doesn't just stay there, right? It's like you can get your marriage license, but if you're done working after that, you're, you know, good luck, you know? So that's dynamic and requires energy, intentional efforts to continue. Yes, it benefits students. The students we were talking to were, we discussed the benefits they were seeing and feeling and appreciating. There's multiple ways to enact it, as to the question in the back room. I don't suspect if we were able and had the time and energy to talk to every institution that thinks it's a partnership, I don't think we'd find one that is alike, right? That's all different because you're sitting within the context of the economics of your institutions, your state policies, things like that. But what we wanted to argue is you can put in a lot. There's a varied levels of collaboration, and you can add more collaboration in. Yeah, and that's the last one. So now, what we'd like to do, because this isn't about us just talking, it's about all of us learning from each other. We want to take what we just talked about and also the experiences you guys bring, both with your own work, and have a discussion. But what we were thinking might work, and you can put this in your evaluations if it doesn't. What we were thinking might work the best is people who are in the similar levels of collaboration. Like if you have an institution your institution works with, and you feel you're at the highest level, an alliance, then maybe talking to somebody else who is, and maybe see how, you know, you can keep it going or whatnot. So we have got a couple things. We don't have enough handouts because we didn't listen to what they told us for how many to can you unrecord that? How many they told us to make. So we only made like 35. So if you guys are willing to share, because what we thought we would do in this group work activity, how much time do we have exactly? All right. What we were hoping is, as you guys were able to, and we have the handout with these questions on it, and you might use just a piece of paper if you don't get one of those handouts, is spend some time basically answering these questions with the institution you collaborate with most. Because what we're trying to get to is, after you guys spend about 7 minutes filling this part out, you're going to find somebody else near you who's also either in one of those 4 categories. Maybe you don't have a partnership, so you would consider your relationships only at the cooperate level versus coordinate and collaborate or alliance. So, but you got 7 minutes to write this down yourself, and then we're going to make you go find somebody, and then you're going to basically discuss what you wrote down, and then what we're going to ask you guys to do is share out this last part. Okay, so if we have one for every 2 people, and what Ling is also passing out is we have a matrix with more descriptions of what are these 4 different groups that we were talking about. Is that all making sense to everybody? And so it's 20. So you've got 7 minutes. This is the quiet time doing your own homework, and then you got to go around and and find somebody who's going to fit in one of the 4 groups, and then you guys are going to have more conversation. All right? So working on those questions. All right, thank you guys. Again, I'm very excited to see the excitement that's happening. Is anybody willing to share out? We asked about number 6, but anything you're taking away from this talk, in your conversation that just happened. One per group.
I didn't ask my partners if it was okay, so sorry, friends. But we're all three from Georgia schools. I work in the technical college system, Mercer, and UGA. And so we are coming from very different perspectives, and we're talking about some of the limitations. I know it's not number 6, but it's been a big challenge with the way that the system in Georgia is structured to create opportunities for collaboration. And so identifying ways for us to kind of bridge the artificial barriers that have been created by our legislature to identify the different kinds of education, because those definitions have prevented us from seeing the value across the areas. And make us compete for students in ways that are not helping us. So that was probably the crux of our conversation.
Thank you. Somebody from this group? Anyone want to share anything? And it doesn't have to be number 6. It could just be an observation. It could even be something that, you didn't disagree with.
So hello, everybody. My name is John Spiegelmeyer. I'm from Penn State University. I actually work as an assistant director in orientation office at our campus. And one of the big issues that we face is that we have 19 different Penn State campuses that are a part of our accessibility mission. And that becomes difficult because we actually classify our students as change of campus students and incorporating 1+3 programs and 2+2 programs. And so a big catalyst for us is not only developing articulation agreements that coincide with the institutions across our state, but also make it extremely difficult for us to have those intentional partnerships like we were talking about. So instead of just having articulation agreements, we have to make sure that we have those intentional partnerships to make sure we can bridge the gap and again, have good relationships so we can foster our transfer students better. And the biggest complaint about our transfer students is our advising models and acclimating themselves to other campuses as well. So again, this was extremely helpful because it makes us we want to become more engaged in that development of having a robust system for transfer students in addition to other students coming into our institution that are underrepresented as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to coming back over here, this very large group. Does anyone have anything they want to share about what's going on or what you're doing or what you learned? Or
we talked in several different conversations specific to the individuals, but the one thing that we shared between Marion and Ivy Tech is that the work that we've done so far to develop collaborations it's involved the faculty, but only marginally. We're only 3 miles apart as far as our 2 campuses. We have Ivy Tech campuses all over the state, but we think getting the faculty involved is really the next step to take it to the alliance level.
thank you. Sounds like so far we've heard a little bit about policy over here and a little bit about practices and administrative working together here and faculty. How about the alliance folks? Does anyone have anything they want to share about?
I'm Julie Garcia. I'm from Arupe College, Loyola Chicago, which is a 2-year, we're fairly new, 2-year program within Loyola University. And the goal, we were developed to welcome low-income students into Loyola and provide an affordable pathway. So last year when I came here, and just touching on what you said, I was fighting to get Loyola to kind of allow me to engage in more formal partnerships with universities, which I thought was extremely important for the matriculation process, the supports, the increased financial awards that I asked for. And I kept hearing you've got to get the whole school involved, faculty, everybody. So I did this big campaign to get everybody to support me, and so the provost finally signed it. But I'm sorry, in talking to Fausto is from Rowan in New Jersey. We still, when students transfer, it's always a process and a fight to get them enough money to complete their degree. And he was talking about what the New Jersey community colleges are doing in allowing students doing like 3+1s. And so now I'm starting to think if we could do one more year at Arupe and do a 3+1 rather than these 2+2 models, that it would be more affordable.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that something that we saw throughout all of the people that we talked to was that people needed to be creative to work around kind of the barriers that they were encountering. And of course that looks different everywhere you go. So part of it is around looking at your context and kind of what's working well, what assets or strengths do you have, and then where are the holes that need to be filled in. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you participating and picking up your bags and moving. We know that's kind of annoying sometimes. If you want more information about our work, our website is up there. And then we've started writing a lot of these short data notes about what we've found. We're not done yet, so we're still analyzing data, and we'll be continuing to put these out. This is our contact information, and thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.